Have you ever sat there rehearsing the conversation in your mind over and over again, trying to figure out the perfect way to tell someone you have herpes, only to end up more stressed than when you started? Well, if so, you're not alone, because the talk feels huge when you're trying to get it perfect. You think there's a right script, a right moment, or a right way to deliver it so that everything goes smoothly. But here's the thing. The more pressure you put on it and on yourself, the harder it becomes. So I'm going to unpack what this conversation is really about and what actually matters when you finally sit down to have it. Hi, I'm Dupree, and I help people to navigate life with herpes. If this is your first time listening to the Herpes Wellness Podcast, welcome. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. I'm happy you're here today because we're going to get into how to have the talk, how to know if the timing feels right, what to do if someone doesn't react well, and a few takeaways that are intended to make the whole thing feel a lot less overwhelming. Look, having the talk can feel like a big deal. Maybe you're wondering about when you should bring it up or what you should say. So you rehearse it, you overthink it, and imagine the worst case scenario, even though nothing's even happened yet. But most of the time, what you're actually worried about isn't the conversation itself. It's the fear that someone might see you differently, that they'll think less of you, or decide that they don't want to be in a relationship with you. And when that fear kicks in, you start over-explaining, over-talking, or trying to prove that you're still worthy of being chosen. And trust me, I've been there. I've done the whole word vomiting thing more times than I can count. But here's what I learned. Your worth doesn't come from someone's yes. It comes from how you see yourself and how you show up when you share your condition. Most people think that the hardest part of having the talk is saying the right thing. But the real pressure hits you before you tell someone. You start trying to find the perfect line or the perfect moment, like there's some magic formula that will guarantee that everything will go smoothly. But honestly, there is no perfect script and there's no perfect timing. And when that time comes for you to tell someone, you have two choices. You can either shrink yourself to your diagnosis, or you could stay confident in who you are. And when you're confident, the talk becomes much easier because what really matters more than anything is the energy you bring into the conversation. You can say something as simple as, "Before we take things further, I want to share something important with you. I have herpes." Then pause. And that pause, it's super important. Why? Because it's the moment where you stay in control of yourself and your emotions instead of scrambling to manage someone else's. Now, during that pause is where your mind will probably start racing with thoughts like, "What did I do?" Or "I shouldn't have said anything. Maybe I should have waited." Or "They're not going to want to be with me and leave." And this is where most people lose it because that silence feels so uncomfortable that they want to jump in. And trust me, it will take all of your strength not to. But here's why that pause matters. Because the second you start talking too much, explaining yourself and defending your diagnosis, you're not just giving information. You're trying to control the outcome and trying to manage someone's reaction. And that puts you in the role of seeking approval. If you start rambling and saying things like, "I take care of myself," "I've only had a few outbreaks," or "I use daily suppressive therapy to manage transmission," you're literally trying to explain your way into why they should accept you. And you're also begging them to stay. And all that does is send a message that you're desperate and that you don't think you're enough unless you convince them that you are. But when you let the silent sit, something different happens. You give the other person space to react and to respond. And most importantly, you give yourself a moment to breathe. Listen, this may be hard to hear, but you're not responsible for how someone else reacts. It's not your job to manage their feelings or protect them from being uncomfortable. Your only job is to be honest with them and to let them show you who they are. People reveal a lot without saying a word, in their tone or in their body language. And you deserve to see all of that clearly before you decide if this is someone you want to invest any more time in. Now, let's talk about something most everyone struggles with, and possibly you have too. And that's telling someone you have herpes. And while saying the words can feel really scary, what most people truly worry about is the reaction that comes afterwards. Because the truth is, not everyone is going to react the way you'd like. Some people might ask questions, and some just might not handle it well at all. And some may need time to process, like my partner did when he got up and went to the bathroom. And trust me, that put me into a full panic mode when that happened. My heart started racing and my mind was spiraling with all the negative thoughts. So I took a deep breath and reminded myself that I can't control what comes next and how he's going to react. The only thing that I could control was how I respond. And no matter what happened, I knew I'd be okay. That said, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say next. When you get a reaction you don't like, it doesn't mean you did something wrong. It doesn't mean you're unlovable or undateable. And it definitely doesn't mean your life is ruined. All a reaction does is show you who that person is and where they are emotionally. Some people react out of fear because they're not well informed. Some react out of discomfort because they've never had this conversation before. Some react from their own insecurities that have absolutely nothing to do with you, and some react because they simply don't want anything to do with it. And none of that says anything about you or your worth. Here's the thing I want you to remember. You shouldn't be looking for a certain reaction from someone, but instead, you should look for someone who stays present, asks questions, listens, and wants to understand your situation. If someone pulls away, ghosts you, or shuts down after you open up to them, that's valuable information. It tells you whether they can show up as an adult and also if they have the ability to handle real conversations. And honestly, it's a hell of a lot better to find out early than after you've invested your time and yourself emotionally. I mean, you don't want to build a connection with someone who only shows up when things are easy, do you? And you definitely don't want someone who expects you to accept everything about them, but then sees your diagnosis as a deal breaker, right? What you should want, though, is someone who sees you for who you are and stays because they choose you regardless of your condition. And if someone doesn't want to stick around, it doesn't make them a bad person. It just means that they aren't your person, and that's totally okay. A no is not a reflection of your worth. It's not a sign that you shouldn't have said anything. It simply means that the connection wasn't meant to be. And someone's no opens the door for someone else to say yes. The right person won't run. They won't judge you based on your diagnosis. They'll stay present, ask questions, and they'll choose to move forward with you. That's the person you want in your life. Someone who chooses you because they see everything you bring to the table, not just your condition. So, here's a question I get asked all the time. When is it the right time to have the talk? Everyone wants that moment where the stars align and the energy feels right and the conversation magically becomes easy. But I'm going to tell you something that took me a long time to understand. There is no perfect moment. Because the feeling you're waiting for doesn't come from someone else or timing. It comes from inside of you. I've heard a lot of advice out there telling people that they need to feel totally safe first. And look, that might sound comforting and protective, but it misses the bigger point. Because no matter how kind or supportive someone is, they can't give you a sense of safety that you haven't built within yourself first. Feeling ready to tell someone has nothing to do with the vibe of the moment or the personality of the person that you're talking to. You could literally be sitting across from the most understanding person on earth and still feel like you're about to pass out just thinking about saying the words. Why? Because safety isn't external. It comes from within. It's about whether you trust yourself enough to handle whatever happens next, especially if someone says no. If you're waiting for the conversation to feel easy or for the other person to say something that makes you suddenly feel brave, you're going to be waiting a very long time. Let's be real. If you're carrying fear, if you still feel like herpes makes you feel unlovable or broken, then it doesn't matter when you say it. It's going to feel scary every single time because it's not about them. It's about whether you feel grounded enough in yourself to speak your truth, even if the moment gets awkward or emotional. So, how do you know when you're actually ready? Well, you're ready when you can say, I have herpes without needing to dress it up, soften it, or apologize for it. You just speak your truth as is. You're ready when you don't need their reaction to decide how you feel about yourself. You're ready when you know who you are, you know your worth, and when you don't need someone to hand you a permission slip to feel good about yourself and your life. By the way, this isn't about being fearless. Having the talk takes a lot of courage, but courage is moving past your fear and having the talk anyway. You can be nervous as hell, and you probably will be each and every time you tell someone. You'll probably feel that your heart is pounding, and that's totally normal. Heck, I got so nervous coming out to my partner, and that was only a couple of years ago. And talking about herpes on this podcast in front of thousands of people still gets to me sometimes. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said it didn't. But in the end, having the talk, or talking about herpes in general for that matter, isn't about timing. It's about not allowing your worth to depend on someone else's acceptance. When you can own your story and stand by it without shrinking yourself down to fit someone else's mold, and knowing that you'll be okay no matter what anyone thinks, and no matter what that outcome will be, that's when you're ready. And that's when it's time. So before we wrap up, here are a few things that I want you to take away from this episode. 1, you don't need the perfect words. Your power comes from showing up as yourself and being authentic, not from trying to deliver the perfect script. 2, say it, pause, and breathe. The pause is where you stay in control of yourself instead of managing someone else's reaction and trying to control the outcome. They'll show you how they feel without you having to say another word. 3, their reaction is about them, not your worth. If someone pulls away, that's okay. That's on them and is not a reflection of who you are. 4, the right person won't need convincing. They'll choose you because they see you as a whole person, not your diagnosis. Well, that's all I have for today. If you liked today's episode, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. It helps us to keep creating this content, helps the channel to grow, and it makes it easier for others who need support to find it. Also, remember to join our herpes community by downloading the Herpes Wellness app. The link for both the App Store and Google Play is in the description box below. And if you're liking this podcast so far, or if there's something specific you'd like for me to talk about, go ahead and leave it in the comments. I would just love to hear from you. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you the next time on the Herpes Wellness Podcast. Bye for now.